Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Magic Threads Connection Through String. And I'm so excited to have my guest with me today, Veronica Murphy, who is the owner of Stashlounge here in Calgary and also Rick Rack Textiles. For all of the sewers out there. And I'll let Veronica introduce herself a little bit more if she wants to.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Veronica, owner of Stash and Rick Rack Textiles. I'm super excited to be chatting with Jen. I'm actually in Newfoundland right now on vacation where I'm from. And I think I'm going to have a really good time because I haven't talked to another knitter for a little while, which is really strange because I'm in Newfoundland and you think they'd be everywhere, but that's not actually the case. So, yeah.
That's interesting. I was actually going to mention that you're a fellow East Coaster, which was very exciting for me to find out when we first met a long time ago. I think there's always like a bond with the East Coasters, but especially East Coast knitters. So that's interesting that there aren't a lot of knitters around, at
Yeah,
least
like
here.
they're here, but they're not, they're most of them are older.
Right.
And then, there's not very many actual yarn shops here on the West Coast. So, like if you want to get yarn, you have to go to the corner store, like the convenience store down the bay. All the convenience stores up the coast have Briggs and Little and usually some other yarn and some suds and things. And then I was just up in Cowhead and Skivers is up there and they dye their own stuff and she's lovely and she's also La Veronica, so which was really funny. So but
That's
yeah, there's not much I find, and if they're knitting, they're not, there's not many knitting circles or things like that. It's yeah, it's a little more of a quieter scene here.
Well, I think we were talking about this before we started recording, but I think the whole East Coast time, is it's a whole thing. Like it is really a different vibe out there. It is a much slower pace, which honestly, when I'm on vacation, is like the best thing in the world. To just like, yeah, not be like rushing everywhere. And yeah, it's a whole vibe.
Yeah, it really is. It's been super fun. Like when we were up in St. Anthony and we realized that, there's so much more here to see because visiting Newfoundland is like peeling back an onion. It's so bizarre. Like I just kept saying, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. Of course, Basque fishermen were here. Of course, there were Inuit here before the Vikings. Like every layer and we just realized we did not have enough time for this trip. So we slowed down and stayed a few extra days so that we could also poke at rocks and watch fish
Well,
swim by, and it was wonderful.
I
So
kind of feel like the landscape of Newfoundland and Labrador is so vast that it's almost like a whole country within a province. Like it's like there's so much different, like everywhere you go, it feels like you're in a completely different place.
yeah, it's like I was on these barrens. They're called the limestone barrens, and there's only a few spots in Newfoundland that have them. And they look kind of like Mars, except there are these like amazing, delicate little rare barrens flowers that grow there that only grow there. And so all of a sudden you start looking and then you look harder and you realize there's this whole ecosystem just below you and you're trying not to step on it and you're identifying them. And then 2 minutes later, you're in the forest. And then 2 minutes later, I passed a fjord. Like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Then it'll be barren. And it was just like around every corner is a different ecosystem here. It was
That's
insane. So,
amazing. That's
yeah, it was so
amazing.
amazing. And then the
So,
history, whew, so crazy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that sort of leads into my first question that I ask everyone is how you got started. I'm assuming you got started in Newfoundland. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but
No, I
how did you,
did. Yeah,
yeah,
I
how'd you get
did, but it
started
was
in the whole fiber world?
I know, right? So my grandmother knit. Everyone's like, "Oh, my grandmother knit." So my grandmother knit for like 16 kids. And you'll find this interesting, and I may have told you this before, but she knit for 16 kids. So my mother actually had an aversion to knit goods because to her it was like a sign of being poor and rich kids could go purchase, store-bought clothes. And she had homemade mittens. So she never knit. So it was like a generation got skipped. And then when I wanted to learn how to knit, I asked her, but I'm left-handed. And she didn't want to teach me because she had tried to teach my auntie who was left-handed, and it led to just tears and conflict. And so she just assumed she wouldn't be able to show me. So I actually learned in art school. So Barb Hunt she teaches, I think, at AU Arts in the Fibre department, and she was in Newfoundland for 1 year covering a sabbatical, and she made everybody in the class learn how to knit. And that's the first time I learned how to knit was in art school from a person from basically Alberta.
That's
Yeah,
the wildest
yeah.
origin story I've ever. That's wow.
It's
That
really weird. And so I didn't touch it very much after that. I forgot how to knit, and then I taught myself all over again. And then up in Prince George, BC, and then I forgot again. And then in Calgary, I taught myself a third time and had some assistance with from some other knitters who I worked with. And that's when it really stuck. So, but I've been knitting for like 18 years now. So,
and then
yeah.
you just fell down the rabbit hole and now
Oh,
own two
yeah. I
stores and
it went
it's your
it
whole
it got
life.
crazy real fast. It got real fast. So that's how I learned how to knit was from an art professor.
That's wild, but I actually really kind of relate to like your story about your grandmother and just like your mom's experience with knitted goods is that there was this like kind of, and I feel like that's why I stopped knitting kind of in like middle, like junior high and high school was there was this like yeah, it like there was a poverty link to it somehow in them. And I think that might be, and maybe it's not, but this was my experience on the East Coast. Like there was like, and it was also maybe that, you know, my grandmother, like her wool, the only wool my grandmother ever knit with was Briggs and Little, right? Like so there was like, and Briggs and Little, it can sometimes be a little rough sometimes, or you know what I mean? Or I also feel like, you had like my great aunt was like knitting us kids like the sweaters, but they were so stiff and which right? Like the couches, like the sweaters were so stiff and itchy that that's what it felt like was instead of just, and I mean, to be fair, like we had where I lived, there was a small like sewing shop that had a rack of Briggs and Little, and
Yeah,
everything else was like when I was a kid, you got yarn at Kmart. Like
yeah.
there was no Michaels, there was no like I lived in a small town. So like there wasn't options for, and there was like yeah, my grandmother wasn't spending a ton of money on wool because she didn't seem the need. Like she was so
No,
practical,
they
right? She
they're knitting
also
for economy. They weren't
right?
they weren't knitting for self-satisfaction. It was a chore,
Right?
I think, like I'm sure they gleaned some enjoyment out of it. And in my grandmother's later years, it was more of gift giving versus, oh, I have to make sure these children aren't cold while they're all going to school. So it kind of shifted for her. But my family always tells this story about how in my grandmother used to always have to clean the wool, card the wool, spin it before she could even knit with it. And when she was finally able to go to a store and bought ready-made wool that didn't have to have that step, she literally burned her spinning wheel in an act of emancipation. It was like getting a washing machine. It was like
Yeah.
all of a sudden hours of her life just like were given back to her. And now, we drop serious coin to go on a spinning retreat.
Yeah, and I think that is really a shift, and that's like within a couple of generations, right? That there's this real shift
Yeah,
of doing it for joy rather than for chore or work or necessity.
yeah.
Which is that's a fascinating. I hadn't really considered that as like, I mean, I always feel like knitting and crafting and spinning. And I always feel like those are like feminist acts, but in reality, yeah, it
They
really,
were household chores.
yeah,
You couldn't slouch. You had to do it, or somebody didn't have socks, or they didn't have a warm enough hat, or yeah, it was like, especially in Newfoundland. And I mean, Newfoundland's a time warp, right? So, I just went up the Northern Peninsula, and they only got. I was in one place, and their first vehicle was in 1951, and the roads were only put in the 60s, 1960s. So the only way you could go to the Northern Peninsula was by taking boats, basically. You would ferry from one community to the other, all the way across, up the shore to get to where you lived. So they had to, at a necessity. You couldn't even go buy mittens. There were no mittens.
yeah,
There were no sweaters. You had to knit everything if you wanted it. So yeah, I think to them it wasn't necessarily some fun hobby at all. I mean, I'm sure there was elements of the creative expression, but not like it is now. Now we do it because we choose to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like my grandmother, as you know, especially like when we were younger as kids and stuff, it wasn't really like she would just knit us all like gloves every Christmas. And that was the other thing with, and I have not, I'm assuming my grandmother made like knit sweaters when her kids were young,
Mhm.
but I never, the only thing I ever witnessed my grandmother make was mittens, gloves, and socks.
Mhm.
And she used, this was the other thing, she used the same needles no matter what weight yarn it was.
Yeah, they totally did.
Like she had one set of knitting needles. Like it
Yeah,
was just, she just changed her
that
stitches,
and
like
that's
stitch
why their
numbers.
sweaters were so tight. They weren't, there's no gauge, there's one gauge. And it was they memorized how many stitches they needed for that gauge. So there was no reason to mess with any formulas, right?
Right? Like I never
So
saw her, she never used a pattern. She
yeah.
never like it was the wildest. Yeah, I talked about it on an earlier podcast, but I have my grandmother's knitting needles.
Oh wow.
Um, and her last project that she was knitting before she kind of just had to stop.
Oh wow. That's pretty special.
Yeah, the needles, I don't have them, but the needles I really wanted, and I'm guessing they probably just got tossed. But she used like the old like the Susan Bates metal like because she got them at
They,
Kmart.
they probably had a bit of a bend from being like the tension and
She
everything.
actually had worn a couple of the needles. Like there was like actual like she wore down the metal.
That's
So
amazing.
those were the ones that I wanted, but I don't have those. But it's okay. I'll live without
Yeah.
those. But
Yeah,
that was really cool.
somebody trashed the garbage ones, right?
Yeah, right. And I'm like, oh man. And there is still like, even though these were newer, like probably in the last like probably 10 years before she stopped knitting, there is still a little bit of wear on them. So I will hold those dear.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
going to show you one thing before.
yes,
So, I got these. Aren't they nice?
they're
Made out
so
of Briggs and Little. Uh, they were $15 in a church basement, knit by some little Nan. I was like, I can't even knit these for 15. I own a yarn store. I can't knit these for $15. What's even happening? So I had to get them. I was so excited.
that's
So
so
my
exciting.
favorite colors,
You'll have to
everything.
hide those from Candace. Those are totally her color.
I know. I know. Everything I got is kind of that color. I have a little show and tell if you're interested later. It's up to you.
Oh,
So
that's awesome.
yeah.
So part of the reason I started this podcast was because I felt like the fiber world has so many amazing connections. And we've already been talking about those connections
Yeah.
with our family and with a culture like where you live or wherever. But what does connection mean to you?
Oh, well, in terms of the fiber world, I think connection has to do with this, like, we all have this common interest. We all speak this weird abbreviated knitting language. And we also, whenever you see somebody wearing a hand knit, it's really easy to quickly feel out whether it was gifted to them or whether they knit it because, well, they'll be like, thanks, I knit it. Or they're like, thank you, my mom made it for me. Or they will impart their story and you're immediately connecting with that. So I can like look across a room and be like, oh, nice love note. And they're like, why, thank you. And now we're kindred spirits who are both helping each other pick out shirts at the mall. Like, this is what happens. So I think connection it's in person, but like, also online too. I think that Stash started right at the zeitgeist. So Stash is over 14 years old now. And it started really at this zeitgeist moment where online craft communities had discovered this new thing called Instagram, a new thing called Facebook. There was no algorithm to it. It was linear. It was like, in order of time. It was so lovely. And you got these little glimpses into what people were making. And everybody just suddenly got super inspired. And they all just started realizing there's more out there than Kmart or Walmart or Zellers or wherever you were getting it from. And indie dyers started, they all of a sudden they could reach all these amazing people who were like, I didn't even know there was indie dyed yarn. And it blew their minds. So I found that to be a really cool connection. And, Stash blossomed because of that online connection as well. It was like, well, it was an empty playing field when I started. Other yarn shops they barely had websites, some of them. Like, it was a very bare bones affair. And all of a sudden I'm like on this, I don't even know, was it even called social media back then? Oh, in the olden days, when I was young. It
Right.
wasn't even called social media.
I
Like,
can't remember. My perimenopausal brain won't let me remember that far back.
what are we gonna do? So yeah, I hope I answered your question about connection.
Yeah,
I
no,
think that
absolutely.
it's that commonality. And I think knitting does it. I think any craft does it. And when you know how to do it, you can recognize it. Your eye is trained and you can hone in on it anywhere you are in the world, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's really cool. So here's a connection that I completely forgot about until this moment. I did my first dye class at Stash.
oh, no way. That's
Way,
amazing.
right? Way back when you were in the little house.
Yes.
And yeah, I did my first, that was my first like venture into dyeing. And then look at the rabbit hole I'm in
I
now.
did not know that. I did not recall that. So yeah, so that might mean that Susan probably taught you. Was it like our like microwave dye class
Yeah,
that we
it was
used
the
to have?
microwave
I
dye class.
loved that. That was a logistical nightmare. Like because we were so small, we had to do it outside. But then if it threatened to rain, we were like, we're hooped. What do we do? And we'd set up tents and things were trying to dry indoors. And yeah, but it was super fun. I really missed that class actually.
Yeah, it
So
was a super, yeah, that was my first. Yeah, and
that's
then
my, I love that. That's my dream. Like I love having classes because I love finding that, some people take it and they're like, oh yeah, that was fun. And then other people take it and just say, what just happened? And all of a sudden, it's like the Matrix. You're like, I can see the possibilities. And you fall down that rabbit hole or you find a passion that you didn't know was even there until you tried it out. Like, I don't expect everyone who takes, like a spinning class to fall in love with spinning or, the weaving class. For some people, you have to dabble in it and try it and see if it catches your interest. But this is a perfect example of it landed, right? Because you're amazing and your
yeah.
work is great and you dove in deep. You have some mad skills.
Yeah,
So
it
yeah.
was yeah, I totally forgot about that was my very first venture. And then I did some dye stuff at Olds and things like
Yeah,
that
like real dye
afterwards, but
stuff. That's where you get technical and you learn about your mordants and your, setting it yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's the thing about Stash. A lot of our classes are like just surface level, see if you like it. A lot of
Yeah.
those one and done sort of thing. And then the next thing you know, you're like a master dyer or something, or you have a small
Right.
business related to it. So
Well, and what part of what I love about Stash is the community that you've created as well, because that's about connection too. And it's like that community of fiber people, like you have classes, you have events, you have, you have craft nights, you have like all of that stuff just helps, solidify and keep building that community for others. And then they, I know there are like places where people have like broken off and they do their own thing from going to like a craft night, or like it's just it's magical. Like it really is. Like when I named the podcast, I was like, it's truly magical. And I feel
Yeah.
like that connection is what's going to save us
Yes.
as a society. Like
It
that's
makes me feel more sane to interact with people face to face. And I've been trying to actually increase community at Stash because I was taking social media for granted, in my opinion, in terms of how I reached my community and shared with my community. And then, it was like death by like 1,000 cuts, in my opinion, where my reach eroded. And this is not from a business point of view. This is from me just sharing a sweater that I finished. Nobody was seeing it because I was labeled a business and it gets throttled. So the very people who would get inspired by things weren't seeing it anymore. And I was just like, it's never going to go back the way it was. It's never going to be the same, right? Things change and evolve. And I was like, I think I need to get back to reality here and start having craft nights again and doing more events again and more, I call it like outreach. So that's what I've been doing more of in the past couple of years. And like I started my newsletter, like it's a physical print newsletter. I meant to have one handy to kind of flog it because it's pretty fun looking, but it's
it is
only
it's
available in print. I haven't made it available in digital because I'm like, no, it only exists in this little physical world.
it's
And
super
you get to have
cool.
a copy. It's kind of interesting. So it has a crossword puzzle.
Well,
So
it's kind of like it harken like when I look, it would like kind of harkens back to the zine days, right?
yes. Yes, and I'm of that age as well. So, and that was something I always wanted to do but didn't do. And I'm just like, no, just deep down, I'm just kind of like living my like teenage life now with that, you know?
Honestly, even the fashions that are back, I'm like, yes, 90s wide leg jeans. Yes.
I know, me too. I'm so happy about it all. It's so great. Waists are a little higher. I didn't like that low rise part. That was awful.
Yes. Yeah.
Whew.
But no, even the low rise are like not the low rise of our youth at this
No,
point,
ours were like this close to showing pubic hair. Like it
or
was
not
dicey.
even
It
that
was
close.
dicey
It was,
down there.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
So
I was more in like the grunge rather than like
yeah,
the low rise, like kind of early aughts, skin
yeah.
tight.
I was too old for like the Britney Spears era of
Yeah.
them, I was more into, I remember I was at a friend's party. Oh, gosh, in grade 8, and I don't know what crap I listened to at that point, and they had much music on at his birthday party, and we were all sitting around, and this song came on, and this video came on, and I tuned everything out and locked in and was like, what is this? What am I hearing? It was the first time I had ever heard Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, and it changed my like life. I was
I
like, what is that music?
I
Because
have
I think I
goosebumps.
switched from Boys to Men to Nirvana like instantly because it was something real, right? It wasn't this
I
glossy
I seriously have
garbage.
goosebumps because I knew that was going to be the song you were
Yeah.
going to say. I was
That
like,
first opening sound, like my head whipped to the television. My friend and another girl there was Janet, and we looked at each other and we were like, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" Like, I know it makes us sound ancient, but it was
no.
amazing. So yeah, I was grunge, and I would steal my dad's like work clothes and his like denim jeans all tore up from carpentry, and like sneaking out of the house with his giant plaid shirt and everything. So
Right.
it
I
was so
had my
exciting.
my grandfather passed away when I was 6, just before I turned 16, and I had like I kept one of his plaid shirts and I wore that thing through university. I moved it to Alberta with me, and finally just like a few years ago, I got someone to make me project because it was falling apart. Like it was like
Yeah.
the scene, like it was, and someone made me project bags with it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's exciting.
I still have that plaid shirt of my grandfather's from the 90s. Oh God, we sound so old. From the 19th
So
century.
maybe knitting is just like that new connection. Because like, when grunge was, if you saw somebody across, the mall and they had their signifiers on, if they also had that plaid shirt on and some, you know, scuffed up chucks with it and jeans, you kind of knew what they listened to. You knew who they were, that you knew they were your people. And here we are doing the same thing with like, knitwear and crochet wear. Maybe it's maybe it's just us still trying to find our people and find our groups and share that moment with one another. So
No, I think, yeah, I totally think you're onto something there. And I mean, I think there are a lot. I mean, knitting is not the only, community like that exists out there. Like there's, there's tons of different communities. I think, and I think it's because it's a woman hobby, that I kind of gets dismissed more than a lot of those other communities, right? Like it's
yes,
like
yes,
it,
not taking it seriously. They act like we're the only ones who, oh, that's unusual, but it's not. They don't nobody understands or realizes the magnitude of this craft, of this whole fiber world. Like
yeah. Well,
I
people
try to
are,
explain Ravelry to somebody and they don't get it, right? Like,
or even just
but
when
it
I'm
is
explaining my,
one of the most important websites in my life.
yeah, right? And then or even trying to explain to people what my job is.
Yeah,
And then I'm telling them like that I'm going to shows and they're like, "Oh, so it's like a craft fair." And I'm like, "No, this is
yeah.
like a show specifically for creators who are sorry, apologies for that. I have my computer, I have do not disturb on, but somehow a phone call got through.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, there's like now I totally lost my train of thought.
Oh,
Um,
oh, yeah, we were
oh,
talking about
yeah,
like
but
people don't understand the magnitude. They're like, "Oh,
yeah,
you dye yarn?"
right. And I'm like, no, there are like huge convention sized shows that are just yarn and tools and wool and like other things that like those makers use. Like it's a thing. Like it's a big thing.
People ask me, they're like, oh, you own a store. Well, who's running your store while you're here? And I'm like, my employees who run the store. Like, I'm not in this little tiny room knitting, hoping someone comes in my store. Like, it's a bumping business. Or people are like, oh, it must be nice you get to knit at work. I'm like, I haven't knit at work for 12 years. Like, I don't have, nobody should be knitting. We're busy. We're helping people. We're restocking. Like we're organizing. It's a busy shop, but people think it's this sleepy little like Gilmore Girls like dreamland. I don't know. I don't know. People just really underestimate it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And
yeah,
so speaking of big shows too, Knit City is coming up in Calgary again, which is very exciting.
it is. It's coming
And
up.
I know last time you did tons of I actually was speaking with Amanda and Fiona the other day,
Yeah.
and because I had to book them early because they're super busy leading up to Knit City, of course. So their podcast is going to come out in September. So there's your little preview, people, of who's my September guests will be. But they were loving on you and the stash initiative when they arrived because they had no idea it was going to happen. And then they arrived, and Stephen Avenue was like completely yarn bombed.
Yeah. That
And they
was
were
fun.
like, it was the best thing ever.
That was really fun too, actually, because I got to like do a call for knitters. And I used to be on the Business Improvement Association or area. Association for Inglewood. And so I understood how they worked. And the Downtown Business Association has a very large budget. And so I basically reached out to them and asked, hey, could I arrange to do some yarn bombing on Stephen Avenue? Would you help pay for this? Because I would like to contract somebody to knit up really large pieces to get a lot of the heavy lifting done for us. And then I would also call for volunteers and we would supplement it with, a little bit more, unique pieces. And I pitched them like installation date, budget, timeline, takedown date, and they gave me money to do it. So they
Really
covered the
cool.
cost of all the yarn, and that included yarn I could give out for free to people as well. I paid a fiber artist in Lethbridge, Peach Johnson. She does a lot of costume work for the movie industry, and she has knitting machines. And so I had her experiment with doing striped pieces so that we measured it all up so that we knew exactly what sizes she needed to bust out so that we could cover Stephen Avenue that way. And it worked out great. So it was really fun.
That's
And this year
amazing.
I'm not doing anything like that because I think Stephen Ave is still tore up and there's a lot of weird things going on in that area down on the street level. I'm not doing something like that this year. This year I'm running a really fun contest with like crochet triangles.
Oh,
So I'm going
cool.
to be doing a lot of decorating with crochet triangles this year. So we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah, that's cool. But yeah, it's just, I really love that. Yeah, Knit City is here because once again, I don't have to travel.
I
Because
know. So
it's amazing. And, and yeah, and little sneak peek, not giving away any real secrets, but we're neighbors on the floor,
yes, that's
which is
exciting.
very exciting.
Yeah.
I love having fun people around me, so that'll be
It's nice. It's nice to meet new people too. I like to
yes,
have a few
yeah.
new faces around as well. But yeah, it's also nice to know that somebody's nearby so that, like if somebody needs to step away, we take care of one another because we are that community. And I actually really like that space. It's a really stunning space. They open up the entire like one side of the Telus Convention Center so you can see over to Tetro and everything. And it's just a really gorgeous light in there. It felt very
Right.
classy.
Right? Like I think it's honestly like the best venue I've ever done a show in.
Yeah.
And I was talking to Amanda and Fiona too about the fact that that they load your stuff in for you is just like this magical event that
Yeah.
like
At first I was like, what? And then they did it. And I was like, oh, that was really nice. I really enjoyed that.
right?
So
I was hanging my lights and my I had my daughter with me and we were like hanging my little like string lights at the back of my booth and then suddenly I turn around and my whole booth is behind me and I didn't have to move anything and I was like, "Oh, I could get used to this." Because like that's the part that people, people yarn shows are magical. Like
they are.
they're super
Setup and
magical.
takedown is not glamorous.
Right? The setup is what like we're hauling that grid wall, we're hauling like the bags and the boxes and the lights and the everything. Like we're setting up. And I mean, you have a retail store, so you like recognize this. Like I was trying to explain this to my best friend's parents when I was visiting last summer. What like I walk into and a lot of these shows, it's set up and tear down on the same day.
Yeah.
So like you have 2 to 3 hours to set up a retail store. Like it's a full on retail store.
Yeah.
And then you like operate your store for the day and then you rip it down at the end of the day. It's sort of a wild endeavor to
Even multi-day ones are wild. My first off-site stash event was actually the Calgary Folk Festival. I was a merchant. I was in the merchant marketplace area for that. And I brought my vintage trailer mainly as eye candy because it was completely useless as, other than storing things at night. You couldn't really go in there, but it was just eye-catching. But it was so much work to set up and take down. And then if the wind changed, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I thought I had this covered, but I do not. Yeah, that was a logistical one because I had to leave it out overnight for like 3 nights. And I
Yeah,
did that one for 3 years. So it was really fun.
I
But
remember those days actually because I'm an avid folk fester. So I was like, "Ooh, Stash is here." Too bad
yeah.
I don't. I'm like, I have all my yarn with me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun. It just helped me meet people more than anything. Helped me find my people, right? Because that's the other thing I always found about people underestimating the fiber world is that they assume that's our only interest. They assume that's it. But the reality is quite often like we're huge into music. We often are like really into bicycling. We're often very outdoorsy. Yeah, like we're just well-rounded people. We're not just obsessed with one thing. And I feel like people sometimes lose sight of that, including some yarn stores. I found because before Stash, my husband, he would take me to yarn shops all over when we were traveling. He'd say, "What'd you think of that one?" And I'd be like, "Oh, well, it was nice. I had a few things I liked, but I'd walk in and, it wasn't always like music playing or it didn't have like any character and it just always felt like one dimensional, I guess. And I wanted something built up a little bit more multi-dimensional. So when we opened Stash, we intentionally made it kind of crazy inside with antiques and weird boxes. And I mean, a lot of that's normal now, but when I did it, yarn shops were very clean, white cubicle kind of looking at the time. And they've evolved now as well. And yeah, I just think there's more personality in the whole industry. But
Yeah, which is
yeah,
super fun. I mean, I feel like I have a big personality and I love like that. I love that. I love, people I have like wild names and all of that stuff. So it's like, and I feel like people are appreciating that and more. And, like like I'll have people, and you probably get this all the time in the shop too. Like I have people buying colorways just because of the name.
yeah,
And that's awesome. Like
it
it's
is. It really is. Like they either get a chuckle out of it or they link to it. When I started Stash, the other weird thing was setting up my point of sale for yarn. And the person I was working with was like, well, like you could just sort it by color, like, red or blue or and I was like, oh, sweet, sweet child, you know nothing. Like, that isn't named blue. That is called like the cold Pacific Ocean. I was like, this red one is like death on the Nile. Like, I was like, none of these have normal names. I can't just choose from your menu. But yeah, I was like, it's not a t-shirt. The Newfoundland connection is bad.
it's
Are
all
you
good.
okay? Are you there now?
I'm
Okay,
back. We're
sorry.
back. Yeah.
Okay, we're back.
I'll edit that
Yeah,
part out.
sorry
But
about that.
but yeah, it's a really, I remember one of my best um colorway name stories. I remember being at Olds during Fiber Week when it was there, and I used to have a colorway called Pancakes and Orgasms. And it was from Grace and Frankie, the show on Netflix.
Yeah.
And it was, so for those who haven't watched Grace and Frankie, they create a vibrator for older women that won't cause their, tendonitis and stuff to act up, and it's easy to hold with grip. Anyway, long, and so one of them, I believe it was, yeah, one of them says pancakes and orgasms, best day ever. And so I was like, pancakes and orgasms is an amazing name. So I had this colorway, and two at this one Fiber Week, I had these like two little old ladies. And and I don't use that, but they were at least 80, both with walkers, came in separately. They weren't together, and picked up that yarn and went tee hee 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 and bought it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I feel so validated right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, half the fun of yarn and dyeing and picking colors is the names. So Yeah, I was going to tell you a story, but I need to save it because we may use it at Stash in the future. But I'll catch up with you on that one about naming yarn colors. It's a good one. So, but
That's
yeah,
awesome.
like even when I was up at Skivers, this one is what's this one here? So this is Skivers, and this is just a sturdy sock. But then this one here is from Fleece Artist, and they've always had good names as well. And this one's Gross Morn because I was
Yeah.
in Gross Morn. So there's also souvenir yarn with the names too, right? Like
Yeah, and
that.
I know Police Artist a few years ago did that whole national parks like section, and I definitely like I bought yarn from the national parks out east that I love. Like I bought the Fundy one and the PEI
Yeah,
one because I love spending time in PEI. So it was, yeah, it's kind of,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's,
and I think that the Nova Scotia one may have been for like it was very sandy colored. It was I didn't even like the colorway wasn't even inspiring, but I just wanted that representation from the name of it. So yeah, the names of our yarns can be very powerful.
yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, absolutely. I have to say, yeah, my Punch of Fascist yarn has been very popular at shows over the last couple of years.
So good. Excellent name.
And
Yeah.
that's when I know I'm like, some people look at it and then they put it down and walk out. And I'm like, you are not my people. And then the people who pick it up and they're like, hell yeah. And I'm like, you are my people.
Yeah, it's the connection, right? They didn't connect with it. That's fine. They can go find someone naming things poorly, I guess. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's many of that out there, but yeah, I feel like a
No, and
lot
I
of the
mean, and
designers.
I even my yarn names are, as we both know, I'm a very political and socially aware person. So a lot of my colorway names reflect that, right? Like there's, yeah, I had one person, it was a man at one of the shows I had this spring, and I can't remember where it was, but he was like, "So, you've got a real problem with the patriarchy, hey?"
Just a little,
Right? I
just a
was
bit.
like, I was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah,
just a little bit, yeah.
that's awesome.
Right?
That's good. We need to rattle them up though.
Yeah. And
You know,
he was totally joking. He was
oh
like
yeah,
not he wasn't like angry or offended. He was just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
"So, you got a problem with the patriarchy?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do."
I love it. So good.
Well, this has been lovely catching up with you and just, yeah, chatting about, yeah, the community in Calgary and Stash's role in it and all of that. I love. I also want to point out, and I brought this up with Candace, and when she and her sister were on, and she got upset with me because I also love, this ties into the political thing. Stash is so open and welcoming. And when I was doing a pop-up there last summer, Janice Irwin, who, for those of you in Alberta, is very popular, called, she's our ML Gay, an MLA from Edmonton. But she was walking around Inglewood and came in, has no idea what the store was, is not interested in yarn, even a tiny little bit, but saw the trans flag on the door and was like, I want to check out this store. And I
Yes.
just, and so yeah, we got pictures, and then and poor Candace was upstairs and missed her. So she was like, that was where she was upset with me. She's like, right, bring it up. Yeah, you got to
Yeah.
meet Janice and I didn't.
Yeah, I missed out as well. It
Yeah.
was a bit of a bummer. I also am a huge fan of Irwin. They're an amazing politician. They are well spoken and they are doing the good work that we need done, right? Like they're not they're not some career politician kind of in it for themselves. They clearly represent real people.
Yeah.
And
And
that is
she's
so
out there.
refreshing.
And
And also to be so positive. It's so nice, right? So
and
yeah, no, we
she's,
are a welcoming store. We try really hard to do that. And I know it's a tough line to toe in a sense for business, as you also probably know, that, getting too political can drag you into a fight you're not ready for, not being, you know, vocal enough can make you present as if you don't care when you really do. And I try to encourage people to be more cautious around small businesses in their politics and really give them grace for it because it can really tear up a business if we imply that they don't care when they do, but they just are not in a position to stick their neck out as much as others, right? Some people do have things on the line. And it's so at Stash, like we try to keep it in a very positive context and letting people know that we are welcome and that we do care for the community. And that's why we also do a lot of things like we do our Socktober event where we collect thousands of pairs of brand new socks and they're for Calgarians. We're trying to actually take care of our community. We really do care about it. So we try to make that like as obvious as possible for everybody coming in the door and to set the tone for anyone who may need to work a little bit more on that exercise, that positive skill as well. I don't know how to say that,
Yeah.
but yeah, I try.
Yeah.
We try.
Well,
Yeah.
and I also love that a lot of your craft nights and events, if there's like if there's a ticket involved, there's often usually a donation to a cause connected to it as
Yeah.
well, which I really, because it's the actions that count as well. And I feel like Stash really, does like,
Yeah, yeah. Because like we want to do social events, and one of the reasons we even have tickets is just so that people will register and actually show up,
yeah,
right? Like it's easy to brush off something if you didn't pay anything for it.
yeah,
But it's also easy to say, oh, I don't want to go to that because it costs $5 or whatever. But if that $5 is literally going to the Stone Foundation, then you're like, well, it's a win-win. I get a craft night and I'm helping a cause I care about. And so they commit to going, but they're also committing to supporting the community. And like we can help foster that little relationship with them. So that's why most of our like ticket events are actually by don't like have a donation organization. It's because we're not actually trying to often make money off of it. We're just literally trying to make sure you show up if you register so that we all have a really nice time with a really great group of people.
yeah.
So
No,
it's fun.
I really love that. So one of the other questions that I love to finish off the podcast with is, do you have a guilty pop culture pleasure, like music that you love, or a TV
Mm.
show, or a movie, or
I
anything that you may not
yeah,
be super open with sharing that you love that stuff,
yeah.
whatever it is.
It's tough. I'm very open and I tend not to feel guilty about anything. I have an extremely healthy ego. But I would say, you know what? I have a real soft spot for like zombie movies and The Walking Dead and that kind of like zombie horror post-apocalyptic theme. I'm a big fan.
Interesting.
Yeah. And sometimes it's campy and sometimes it's terrifying and sometimes it's a bit of both. And I think that's what I like about it. So yeah, I was really into the Walking Dead series. And when The Last of Us came out, I really liked that angle because I had never played the video game. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that mashes many things together that I love. Zombie-esque horror creatures and Pedro Pascal. Perfect.
Right?
Chef's kiss. So yeah, I would say that's my pop culture
Oh,
guilty pleasure.
that's fascinating to me because that
Yeah,
is not in my, yeah, I do not love zombies. Like
yeah,
I remember one night on the music cruise that I always go on, there was a zombie theme night and I was like, no. I was
yeah.
like, if a zombie jumps out at me, I am going to kick them in
Oh
like
no, this is only in movies. I've been on Stephen Avenue during the zombie walk and have had to leave. Like I can't be around anyone dressed like a zombie or anyone lurching like one. I'm no cool about it at all. I do not like people dressed up as zombies. I like watching the speculative fiction from a safe vantage point on my sofa hiding like this. Like
that's so I'm gonna bring this up because I love so one of the few zombie movies that I've actually so like zombie-esque in that
yeah, yeah.
genre. Have you seen Blood Quantum?
No. How
So
have I not seen this one?
it's an indigenous
Oh, yes, I
made
have. It was excellent. Sorry.
No,
Yes.
it's okay. So yeah, so that it was actually filmed. So the director and writer of he's passed away now, unfortunately. I went to high school with him and it was
Okay.
that whole movie was filmed in my hometown or like in the
No.
surrounding area. So, and but it's a very interesting for those who haven't seen it, it's a very interesting concept is that there is like a zombie virus that indigenous people are immune from. So it's the white people becoming zombies and coming after the I mean, it's very like there's so many layers and messages in
Yeah.
the movie. But it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's like a zombie movie, but it was based in my and I watched I remember it was here for the very first time when it first came out, it was here for Calgary International Film Festival
Yes.
like way back. And I watched it with a friend and we walked out and they were like, "So I know how I'm feeling right now, but that was your hometown. How are you feeling right now?" And I was like, "I'm feeling really weird because like I wasn't even like a townie." Like I wouldn't have been like one of the townie people. I would have been
Yeah.
one of the hillbillies because I lived out in the country. But yeah, if so for anyone out there who loves kind of that genre and kind of like the political messaging and the undertones, it's actually a phenomenal movie, Blood Quantum for those. But yeah.
There, there's another zombie movie. I cannot remember the name of it, but I loved it when it came out. It was like a zombie heist movie in Vegas.
Oh,
Do you
interesting.
know what I'm talking about?
I
I think it's
don't.
on Netflix. And it's a really weird movie, and it is so campy. It barely makes any sense. Like I was enthralled by it. It was so unintentionally funny. And like there's this one scene. So Vegas is basically wiped out and abandoned and overtaken by zombies, and they're about to drop the bomb on it. But then this crew realizes that there's like gold in there or money in there, and if they go into abandoned Vegas and out again before the bomb drops, then they can get this money. And so it's this weird like Ocean's 11 heist movie, except it's Vegas filled with only rotting zombies, and it's absurd.
That,
It's absurd.
it sounds
It's so
vaguely
bad.
familiar to me,
Yeah,
but
I'll
yeah,
find the name out and share it with you. I'm so
that
sorry I can't remember the name of it, but like I think I watched it twice, and I don't do that very often, like back to back. I was like, I think I need to watch that again. Click, and
that's
did it a second time.
hilarious.
There's this
Well,
one scene where they're creeping through this like whole area of like these zombies, but they're all kind of like dried up in the sun, so they can't move, and they're creeping through, and uh, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be like a major plot line. Nope, dead ends, dead ends to plots left, right, and center in this movie like you never unintentional. Like I was like, oh, the rain's going to activate them. Nope, never see it again. It was so strange. Everything about the movie was like that. It was really weird.
that's
It was a very
hilarious.
odd movie, but I
That's
enjoyed it.
funny. Well,
Yeah.
I love that that's your like, pop culture, not so
Yeah.
guilty pleasure. I
Get my
thought
kicks.
I love this question because I feel like I get to know people who even I've known for a long time. I feel like I get to know them even better by hearing the answer to that question.
Yeah, well, it gets you so animated and excited, right? You're like, oh, I can talk about this.
Right? Exactly. Well,
Thank you
thanks
for
so
asking
much
it.
for joining me from your vacation out
Oh, thank
east.
you.
And yeah, enjoy that Atlantic Ocean for me and all of, that East Coast air. And yeah,
Will do. I'm going out to the cabin tomorrow for another few days to go swimming and poking at things with sticks and looking at ferns. So, but I will have to go back to reality, and I'll definitely see you at Knit City.
yes, absolutely. All right. You take care, Veronica. Have a
Okay,
great
thank
day.
you. Okay,
Bye.
bye.